Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, seriously, are you getting fed up with all these constant stories about how awful the SNP are, how corrupt the people in the SNP are, and how stupid most of them seem to be? No, neither am I. It's fantastic. Well, we might be running into a bit of a snag. Because of the problem they have with the auditors, the SNP could be losing maybe £1 million in public funding because of the rules of the Electoral Commission and the way that political parties are funded. And that would be a crying shame for people in the SNP anyway, not for the rest of us. We would be laughing our balls off. So we're going to take a look at this article to show that the SNP could be in far, far more trouble than even I suspected until I read this piece. I just thought, for example, that the lack of funds coming from the membership might be bad enough. But to lose this as well would finish them. They would absolutely finish, and they would have to disband almost immediately. Here goes. So this could actually be, as I say, utterly devastating to the point of no return, to the final ending. The whole party would have to go into liquidation. All those SNP members would have to sit as independents. He would not be able to command a majority because a lot, of course, of those SNP members are only sort of backing him because of the party and the party structure. But once they're independents and there's no one there to help them, it's every man jack of them for themselves. And all the policies that he has sort of pushed that have led to this, he will lose all the support from his own side. He is now sitting as a dead duck. He is actually finished. It needs someone to come along and basically put him out of our misery. And I think that the only person I'm going to, which I've iterated before, the only person who can possibly do that is Kate Forbes, but she needs to act really, really quickly. And of course, being an accountant herself, I'm surprised she hasn't stepped in to say that she will do the accounts. I don't know what the legal position is there, but I think certainly if she took over, there would be other accountants out there, let's say, more forgiving, more willing to take it on a certain sort of conditional basis. But certainly while he's in charge, that isn't going to happen. But anyway, get to the story. SNP faces loss of £1 million in public funds because of auditor chaos. The SNP is facing a loss of more than £1 million of public funds if it cannot find a new auditor to sign off its Westminster finances, it has emerged. And of course, what's happening is every day that we're getting nearer and nearer that target date of the 7th of July means it's more and more unlikely. In fact, it's increasingly likely that the SNP will fail to do it. They will get the censure. The Electoral Commission will step in. They will do the books. And if they find anything dodgy, it could cause the end of the SNP. So that's the last thing they want. The party's Westminster group, which relies on money from the Commons authorities to pay staff wages, needs to find new auditors by the 31st of May to avoid a cash crisis. SNP Westminster leader Stephen Flynn is facing questions about what he knew and when about the situation and what he will do to end the chaos. Well, if they're keeping these things secret from the National Executive Council, I honestly don't think they would have told Stephen Flynn, a man who only recently took over control of the SNP in Westminster from Tubby, presumably because Tubby was finding it hard to divide his time between Westminster and Greggs. But of course, he's unlikely to be fair to him. I will be fair to him. He's unlikely to know anything because of that air of complete secrecy that pervades the upper echelons of the SNP. SNP leader and First Minister Humza Yousaf revealed earlier this week that the SNP's auditors Johnson Carmichael had resigned in September last year amid a police investigation into the party's bookkeeping, or lack thereof. The party has yet to find a new company to sign off on its £4 million accounts for 2022 and faces a fine of its late filing them with watchdogs by July the 7th. 4 million accounts in 2022 won't be anywhere near that in 2023. The problems of the SNP Westminster Group, which lost Johnson Carmichael as their auditors at the same time and has also yet to appoint a replacement, are even more acute. Because there's a bigger set of rules and much stricter set of rules for Westminster, which can get members disbarred, and things like that. So it could be that no SNP member would be allowed to sit in which case the Tory government would have. I mean, it's got an absolute majority, but any kind of minor skirmish in its own ranks, it could lose votes. But with the SNP gone, it kind of puts the Tories in a much stronger position, and that kind of means that they're going to get, even harsher, more draconian. In a time of a crisis of affordability for things like food and heating, and the Tories are putting rents up, putting rates up, they're putting taxes up, making people even more miserable and poverty-strewn. It is not the right time, and yet we've got Hunt, and I believe I've mispronounced his name there. I think I said Hunt, which is not what most people call him. He's putting these taxes up, he's increasing that, he's making it harder for businesses, just at a time when you really need to be encouraging businesses to work harder, take more people on, and they're doing everything. And of course, if the SNP aren't there to sit on the opposition benches, it means they can go further. The Tories can go further and further and further. And don't get me wrong, I don't protect any party. I will attack everyone because they're all bastards. Every single politician. Like I say, there's very few for whom I have any respect whatsoever. Miriam Cates is one. Rosie Duffield is one, but there's not many. Anyway, getting back to this. The group, which pays for staff, research and travel for the SNP's 45 MPs, had an income of £1.5 million in 2021, around 2/3 of which was called short money. This is state funding given to all opposition parties in the Commons with 2 or more MPs. It should not exist. If a party cannot pay for itself, why should the public pay for it? Why should I, who never would vote for the SNP, pay for the SNP? It is quite wrong. If the SNP think that they are good enough to stand, they should be good enough to raise their own money. And if they can't raise money, it's because it's unpopular, then they shouldn't be standing. The SNP's short money allocation for 2022-23 was 1.15 million. Under Commons rules, parties have until the May the 31st each year to provide the Parliament's authorities with a certificate from an independent professional auditor confirming the money claimed for the previous year was spent exclusively in relation to the party's parliamentary business. And if a party cannot provide an auditor's certificate by then, no further financial assistance shall be paid until such time as a certificate is furnished. It means that the SNP Westminster Group cannot find an auditor soon and meet the deadline. It will struggle to pay its staff. Oh dear, what a shame. I'm going to be really sad and upset about that. Assuming that I could, on that day that happens, actually pull myself off the floor, the laughter, I will wash my face, clear the laughter tears off my face, put the champagne down, I will certainly be making a video, but how I can get it out through the laughter, I will not know. One worker told the Scottish Daily Mail, they've written there, the Scottish Daily Mail, the situation was really worrying, especially if you think colleagues could be made redundant because of the mess the party is facing. Well, this mess is of the party's own making. This is because you allowed these people at the top to remain in power for so long. Regular changes always should be the way, but you don't do that. And then, of course, that air of secrecy which you so carefully guard has caused this. So nobody's got any sympathy. You've brought this on yourself. You've made your bed, now you lie in it. They added, no one seems to have been told the auditors had withdrawn their services. Everyone is in the dark. And like I say, even the NEC, even one of its most senior sort of committees was told wasn't told that this had happened. Meanwhile, Nippy is sitting there going, yeah, don't look, don't ask questions. The accounts are fine, there's no problems, look away, move along now. And yet it was burning from under her own feet. Scottish Labour leader Ian Murray today wrote to the parliamentary authorities about the alarming situation and sent a series of questions to Mr Flynn. Mr Yousaf said he was only told Johnson Carmichael had quit after he became the SNP leader at the end of March, despite the party lacking auditors for more than 6 months. He says that. We know. He was so involved. There's no way he didn't know. Mr Flynn, the MP for Aberdeen South, became SNP Westminster Group leader at the start of December after ousting Tubby Blackford. He also replaced Mr Blackford as second officer on the SNP's Westminster Group accounting unit, with Mr Peter Grant continuing as treasurer. If he's continuing as treasurer, it's time to get a new treasurer. If he didn't know what was going on, he's not very good at his job. In his letter to Mr. Flynn, Mr. Murray asked him when he first learned the group lacked an auditor, whether that group would be able to submit its annual accounts on time, and what protection was in place for staff in case the SNP's short money was withdrawn. Well, they probably haven't got any protection in, have they? I mean, it's not as though they give a shit about people. Mr. Murray said, the chaos engulfing the SNP's finances is now putting jobs at risk and threatening the functioning of their already fragmented parliamentary group. And not just here. A lot of that shorts money, it pays for a lot of things. And it's money that does filter its way north to the SNP in Holyrood, because what happens is that the parliamentary group that would normally give their money into the group in Westminster, they don't. They give their monies to the group in Scotland. And then they use the short money for their money. That's how it kind of works. But if they're not getting that money in, it means that the MPs in Westminster are not going to be contributing to the Scottish group in Holyrood. And that group is going to be poverty-stricken and will be unable to meet its obligations as well. And so the whole edifice of the SNP is so close to crumbling and falling apart that it will be spectacular. It will be a slow crash. You know the way an iceberg sort of carves off into the sea. It's sort of a big, slow and impressive crash. That's how the SNP will go. It won't be quick, but it will be spectacular. He said it is vital in interest of transparency, something that is becoming increasingly clear the SNP knows little about, that these questions are answered in full and without delay. And it also emerged this week that the SNP's ruling body, its NEC, was kept in the dark about the auditors quitting, which I've mentioned. Business convener Kirsten Oswald, the MP for East Renfrewshire, is a key figure in steering the NEC's work. But she knew, and she didn't say anything to the NEC. She needs to be fired. Scottish Tory chairman Craig Hoy said, if anything ought to persuade the SNP to belatedly open their financial books, it is surely the threat of losing well over £1 million a year in taxpayers' funding at Westminster. The jobs of blameless common staffers are on the line due to the party's shameful secrecy and financial incompetence. They cannot even have the ability to run the finances within their own party. How on earth do people trust them with the finances of an entire country? It beggars belief, he continued, that apparently only a tiny clique at the top knew until a couple of days ago that the party's previous auditors have resigned. That cabal reportedly includes MP Kirsten Oswald, and if that's the case, she has serious questions to answer over why she hushed this up for so long. And he is right in saying that, and she needs to resign. She needs to go. She needs to be fired, not resign. Don't give her the dignity of resigning. Call her into an office, do the old interview without coffee, and fire her arse out that door, gone. And make sure she knows, and everybody else knows, it's down to her. Scottish Lib Dem leader Alex Cole-Hamilton said, amidst the bin fire engulfing the governing party of Scotland, there are now junior Commons staffers who've been left at risk and are in limbo. They didn't ask for this. Johnson Carmichael quit, citing a review of our client portfolio and existing resources and commitments. Basically, that's accountant speak for you're dodgy as frig and we want to hand this off because there's no way we want to be involved in illegal activity. It coincided with the party's failing to inform the Electoral Commission on time that its chief executive Peter Murrell had loaned it £107,000. See my previous video about why he is still a member and why they are paying for his defence. It's because he could bring them in and he could bring them down and basically bankrupt them overnight. Mr. Murrell, who's married to Nick Sturgeon, was arrested and questioned by the police, blah, 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 blah. We've done all that, and that's just going over old ground, which we've covered 100 times. But yeah, there's no way that these people didn't know. There's no way that the likes of Kirsten Oswald, how can we say, accidentally forgot to mention this to the NEC. It had to be a deliberate mention, had to be deliberately covered up, had to be done specifically to not release this information. He is in deep, deep trouble. He is finished. And it could end up, when they're losing that million a year, they're basically incapable of doing the job in Westminster. And of course that money that trickles up north will cease, as well as all the other problems with the shrinking membership base. So yeah, happy days. Anyway, it's around here and we'll come up and finish the video. So I think we're now into the late stages of the game. I think we're merely now counting the days. The SNP is writhing in its death throes. It's got nowhere to go. There's no one to save it. Nobody is going to rush forward with a vast injection of funds to keep this party afloat. It has been utterly, utterly destroyed from the inside by its own people, by its secrecy, by its ineptitude, by its financial mismanagement, by its corruption, and mainly by the sheer stupidity of the people running the party. How can they be trusted to run a country when they cannot run their own party? Well, as an outsider, and you know, it is fun to watch this. I mean, I do feel sorry for those people, you know, who have jobs. I do. I genuinely feel sorry for people who are about to lose their jobs, because it isn't good. You know, it's going to be a miserable time for them. They're going to be poverty stricken, and it's never good. No, I take no pleasure in seeing normal, hard-working people losing their jobs because of the ineptitude of what are basically wankers at the top of this organisation. But when they lose their job, when the politicians lose their job, when the leaders of the party lose their job, when the NEC lose its job, when all these people, them at the top, lose their job, that I do take pleasure from. They are the ones that deserve it. The poor buggers on the ground don't. And so, you know, the things that they're doing. I mean, this continued push, as I mentioned in the last video. Oh, you know, he's got all these problems around him, and yet he's going to go and waste anywhere between £250,000 and £1 million on a court case he can't win, just to try and distract people from how appallingly badly the SNP is doing, and what a dire financial situation it finds itself in. It won't wash. We're all going to see. We all know what's happening. I mean, good people like you thankfully watch my channel. I pump all the time. I keep pushing. And I'm not kidding you. There's another 20, 30 stories out there. It's just joyous to watch, because you know that they've done it to themselves. The Tories in Scotland, Labour in Scotland, Lib Dems in Scotland, they're going to gain seats. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to do party politicals. They don't go knocking on people's doors. All they've got to do is keep their mouths firmly shut, because the SNP are doing their job for them. It is fantastic. I hope you all are sitting comfortably. I hope you've all got your popcorn in, because over the next few weeks, I think it is only a matter of weeks now, Humza Yousaf will be out, Kate Forbes will be in, if she can save the party. And I do honestly believe she's the only one who can, because of her accountancy background. If she can save the party, she should be hailed by every person in that party as Kate the Great, and should be made leader for the rest of her life, because without her, the party is finished. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for getting to the end of this one, a bit longer than usual, so thank you very much if you've made it to the end. And if you haven't made it to the end and you haven't subscribed yet, hell, just damn well subscribe. We've got plenty more of these where they come from, and we're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And do also leave a like and leave a comment. They both help massively with the algorithm and get the message out. Anyway, until next time, stay safe, stay well, just go out and buy some popcorn and champagne. You don't know when it's going to come, and goodbye.